Hi, I'm Dr. Shane Semler. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Communication Studies at the University of South Dakota. I'm going to talk to you today about persuasion and emotion. Obviously, emotion is very important to persuasion, but it's particularly important in the context of public speaking. A general definition of persuasion argues that it concerns situations in which attitudes, beliefs, values, and behaviors are modified. Situations can be one-to-one situations, like interpersonal communication. They can be one-to-many situations, like mass-mediated communication. But ultimately, public speaking is a combination of interpersonal and mass-mediated persuasion. Persuasion concerns the modification of an audience's mind. Modification can take two forms. Modification can take the form of conversion, as when Democrats are converted to be Republicans, or modification can take the form of reinforcement, as when weak Democrats are made into strong Democrats. Nobody understood persuasive public speaking better than the ancient Greek sophists. The ancient Greek sophists were the media moguls of their day, which made Aristotle like the Mark Zuckerberg of 4th century Athens. What Aristotle argued is that for persuasion to be effective, it must involve three rhetorical proofs. Those rhetorical proofs are ethos, logos, and pathos. Ethos is roughly defined or translated as character, and it concerns a speaker's reputation. Logos is defined as words, and it concerns the speaker's actual message or their use of logic. Pathos is translated as emotion, and it concerns the speaker's ability to motivate the audience. An audience can respect a speaker. They can agree with that speaker's message. But if they're not motivated to change their mind, then the speaker will not be persuasive. And if the speaker is not persuasive, then it's not persuasive public speaking. Therefore, it is imperative that we examine emotion, better understand it, and enjoy how it can be used in public speaking to persuade audiences. When talking about emotion, I like to use a definition by Lazarus. Lazarus argues that emotion concerns affect and cognition about human needs. All persuaders understand that persuasion begins with a theory of human nature. That theory of human nature is the starting point to which a persuader can appeal. At this level, I like to use Maslow's theory of human needs. Maslow argues that humans have 5 basic needs in ascending level of importance. The first is physiological needs, which concerns the human need for basic things like food and water and air. The second is safety needs. Safety needs concern an audience's desire that their environment be predictable. Belonging needs concern an audience's desire to be a member of a community. Esteem needs concern an audience's desire to be effective and to have that effectiveness recognized. And finally, self-actualization needs concern an audience's desire to be the best self that they can possibly be. A persuasive public speaker uses these needs to motivate the audience by inviting access to those needs or highlighting or threatening some of those needs. In order for a speaker to communicate the emotion to audiences, they must consider both how the audience feels and what the audience is thinking. First of all, affect concerns an audience's non-cognitive response to stimuli. Now, when I say non-cognitive, all I mean is that sometimes we have feelings about our environment that we don't think about before we feel them. For example, when you see this smiling baby, you automatically feel happy and you want to approach that baby. However, when you see the angry man with his fist raised, you want to get away from that angry man, or you want that angry man to get away from you. The latter concerns positive emotion. Positive emotion generally occurs when we want to approach some object. Negative affect occurs when we want to get away from that affect. We want to get away from that object. Now, emotion can be non-cognitive. In that case, it's affect. But in some cases, emotion is cognitive. And when emotion is cognitive, it concerns goals. The goals and the thought happen first, and the affect happens second, which is to say that the affect is inferred from the relationship between the self and their goals. When an individual is approaching a goal, they feel positive. They realize they're approaching the goal, and then they feel positive. When an individual realizes that they are moving away from a goal, they feel negative. They realize that they're moving away from the goal first, and they feel negative second. Persuasive public speakers persuade their audiences by eliciting their emotion when they highlight moving toward goals and highlight moving away from goals. Ultimately, what speakers are able to do is they're able to use both nonverbal and verbal communication in order to elicit emotion from their audiences. That emotion can then later be used to modify the audience's beliefs, attitudes, values, or behaviors in particular ways that the speaker sees fit. First, speakers can use nonverbal communication to elicit an immediate sense of affect from their audience. Research shows that when humans are confronted by emotional displays from other humans, they automatically catch those emotions. That is, emotions are contagious. But in the context of a public speech, even if a speaker communicates affect to the audience, that affect must be interpreted, and it is interpreted through verbal communication. Verbal communication covers the cognitive aspect of emotion. And what speakers do is they highlight goals, access to those goals, or inability to access those goals. This is done incredibly well with stories, as Aristotle pointed out more than 2 centuries ago. Indeed, a story consists of an identifiable protagonist pursuing particular goals. When that protagonist achieves their goals, it's a comedy, and happiness or positive affect is the result. When that protagonist fails to achieve their goals, however, negative affect results, and the result is tragedy. When speakers combine nonverbal affective displays with the verbal interpretation of those affective displays, then audiences can experience emotion in a way that sets them up for persuasion. I'm going to only talk about 2 emotions and the way in which speakers can use verbal and nonverbal communication to put their audiences into that emotional state. The first emotion is sadness. Speakers convey sadness to audiences by highlighting the fact that there's been an irrevocable loss. Sadness is in fact defined as negative affect caused by an irrevocable loss. That's the verbal interpretation of sadness. The nonverbal interpretation of sadness can occur through 3 channels: the voice, the body, and the face. Through the voice, sadness is communicated by lowering one's pitch, lowering their volume, slowing their rate. Through the body, sadness is communicated by relaxing the posture. And through the face, it's communicated by a general drooping of the face, drooping of the eyelids, drooping at the corner of the cheeks. When these 3 channels of the body are combined, then the audience will automatically feel a sense of sadness. The persuasive public speaker can then interpret that sadness by highlighting the particular irrevocable loss. Then the audience is in a state of mind which is sad that can then be later used for persuasive purposes. The second emotion that I want to talk about is anger. Anger is negative affect caused by a perceived injustice. What speakers do is they highlight that perceived injustice, and then they combine making that perceived injustice salient with the nonverbal indicators of anger. Those nonverbal indicators, like sadness, happen through 3 channels: the voice, the body, and the face. In the voice, angry speakers lower their pitch while increasing their volume, speaking more quickly and articulating each word particularly. They tense their posture as though they are ready to fight, and their face becomes very pointed, looking at the object of their anger. This nonverbal affect combines with a perceived injustice to place the audience in a position where they are angry, and that anger can later be used for persuasive purposes. There are 6 total emotions that are experienced universally, regardless of culture. Those 6 universal emotions all deal with the relationship between the self and various goals. Individuals feel happy, which is positive affect when they approach a goal. Sadness, which is negative affect when they experience an irrevocable loss. Fear, which is negative affect when confronted with an imminent danger. Anger is negative affect when confronted with perceived injustice. Surprise is neutral affect when confronted with some unexpected phenomena. And disgust is negative affect when confronted with an unacceptable object. So, let's bring it back to persuasion. Emotions motivate audiences. When a speaker successfully uses verbal and nonverbal communication to place their audience in an emotional state of mind, that audience is queued up. They are ready to act in particular ways. When the audience is angry, that audience is motivated to embark on revenge, like throwing the bums out of office. When an audience is sad, they are motivated to change their existing beliefs, values, behaviors, or attitudes. When an audience feels fear, they are motivated to confront an imminent danger, like the dangers of texting and driving. When an audience is surprised, they are motivated to attend more closely to a speaker's message. When an audience is disgusted, they are motivated to reject some object or person or any other kind of noun. When an audience is happy, they are relaxed and they are ready to reinforce their existing attitudes. More generally, negative emotion makes an audience very critical of some object, and therefore it's very good when speakers want to convert audiences, like change them from Democrats to Republicans. Positive emotion, on the other hand, makes an audience less critical of a message, and therefore works very well when a speaker generally wants to modify an audience's existing beliefs by reinforcing those existing beliefs. People are happy, and they're ready to accept that the reason why they're happy is because what they already believe, think, feel, or do. When emotion is combined with the other two rhetorical proofs, what occurs is a symphony of persuasion that is embarked upon by a persuasive public speaker. When the persuasive public speaker is respected by their audience, articulates a message which they can accept and understand, and then motivates them by placing them in the right emotional state of mind, at that point, the speaker can be persuasive. And the result is persuasive public speaking.